In the 22 issue release of the Azure Stack HCI OS, Network ADC makes a range of improvements to cluster networking. This video goes over cluster network naming, which is one of several improvements to cluster networking. Looking at the screen, I run the getNet intent command to observe the intent we have deployed on our system. The name of the intent is storage compute, and we have two adapters, namely B2B01 and B2B02, deployed in the intent on each host. Having looked at this, I now run the get VM network adapter and getNet IP address commands to check the vNIC setup and their respective IP addresses in our intent. After confirming the vNIC setup and their IP addressing, we now run the get cluster network command to check out the cluster network naming feature. Looking at the output on the screen, we see 4 cluster networks, out of which the top 2 are named and the bottom 2 are unnamed. Looking at the named cluster networks, the pattern of cluster network naming is as follows: the name of the intent that created the cluster network, followed by the purpose of the cluster network, as well as the VLAN that the cluster network is operating on. Moving on to the unnamed cluster network, let us look at unused cluster network 2. Here we observe that this cluster network's role is cluster and client, and we can reasonably infer that this cluster network is being used for management traffic. Since we did not ask Network ADC to take care of management intent or management traffic, this cluster network shows up as an unnamed cluster network. Now we still don't know what adapter or what cause is making unused cluster network 1 pop up. To figure this out, we now run the get cluster network interface command. Looking at the output on the screen, we notice that we have an unused 1 adapter on node 511. If you recall from the network symmetry demo, this is the unused Chelsea adapter that has still remained enabled. Since we are not using this adapter, let us try to disable this adapter using the disable net adapter commandlet. After having disabled this adapter, we run the get cluster network command again, and now we have a much more cleaned up cluster network list. Cluster network naming is thus a very logical and representative way of naming clusters. The name of a cluster makes its purpose and the name of the intent with which it was created very readily apparent, which in turn saves a lot of time. Having the VLAN information right in the name also helps in detecting what adapters or vNICs are expected in the cluster network, which hugely reduces debugging time and complexity and increases the end user's quality of life. Thank you for watching.